As I try to answer the questions after our seminar, let me start by saying that because I don't have all the details, my comment may not necessarily be strictly correct, and you may need to ring me directly if case I have actually misunderstood what you are saying. Let me start with the first question. My question is in the frame of an event that took place last year, even after I cautioned my mother not proceed. Let me pre-preliminary it. My mom and dad divorced when I was 7 years. I'm 46 years today. Last year, my uncle, my mom's brother, who is the last born of their family, called me to share with him my mom's number as he needed to discuss and plan a Kikuyu traditional event where there would be cleansing. So the children in the home, now us, and our children can be blessed or allowed to marry and get married. I asked him what that meant, and he was not ready to explain. I asked my mother, who told me that the event was that because my father never paid all the dowry, and then they got divorced, my mother needed to pay dowry so that he participated in the ceremony. Um, and anyway, the main message is involvement in Kikuyu ancestral worship. According to the Kikuyus, if you don't pay dowry for your wife, even after death, that problem could follow the living people. So that in your case, your father may have died, and even if your mother had died, you cannot yourself start receiving dowry when there was no dowry paid for your mother or your grandmother. In Kikuyu, they are now calling that the Rewagomi, the death of the ancestors. Let me say three things. Number one, according to Deuteronomy chapter 8, chapter 18, verse 10 to 12, we are not allowed to deal with the dead in any way. So, any trying to do something to please the dead, or so that the dead can give us permission to do anything, is a contradiction of scriptures. In the book of Luke chapter 16, again we see Jesus teaching about the difference between the living and the dead. As the rich man and Lazarus story, we are told there is no connection between the living and the dead. Then Paul goes on to make it even more clear. To be absent in the body, in other words, once you die, you are present with the Lord. So you're not in a place where with ancestors where you are disturbing people on earth. So this whole thing is okay for those in ancestral religions, but a Christian can never participate in it. And you may need to explain to your mother that what she is participating in is dabbling in demonic world. The spirit of the ancestors, that's the demonic story. We do not, as Christians, believe that when we start talking to the dead or relating with them in any way. And therefore, that cannot be. Let me give you the second point. The second point is we have agreed the New Testament does not have a place for dowry. So the only reason why your mother needs to buy herself is so that she can be allowed to receive dowry, and so that you yourself can also be allowed to receive dowry. Why don't we start with you as a Christian? Why do you want to sell your daughter? Which part of the scriptures would you be using? Even the Old Testament, which has issues of dowry, sets an example in Isaac. When Isaac was getting a wife, Eliezer goes all the way to his people, but pays no dowry. He asked for the girl there were no negotiations on any payment, but he still gave gifts. So why would you want to get involved to copy Laban who is the one who sold his daughter, and he was a crook anyway, instead of copying the man of faith, Abraham. So, my second point is it needs to be understood that because the connection has to do with the dowry, you yourself determine not to receive or give any dowry, and so you cut the connection with the past and the claims they seem to be placing you, the ancestral spirits seem to be placing on you. Thirdly, we read in First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20, that any religious ceremony of the Gentiles is actually participating with the demons. So whatever that activity it was that your uncle wanted to undertake, it's a religious ceremony and it's not a biblical meeting. Therefore, it falls under the category that is being described as participating with the demons. So I would really suggest to you that you kind of explain to your mother, but even if she doesn't take it herself, please you yourself take a line where you do not want connection